ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. There is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Hi everyone. When I met Simon a few years ago, I really struggled to connect with him. He seemed shy, offish and very soft-spoken. Then I ran into him at a recovery retreat a few weekends ago, and he was a confident, warm and assertive person. This is the story of what happened to Simon. This podcast is supported by the First Layer, the 12-step workbook on working through the 12 steps in any addiction in 21 sessions. There's also a 24-day step coaching and counseling program available based on the First Layer. For more information in this regard, go to www.freddy.org.za and click through from the notices at the right of the homepage. Sit back and enjoy. Good afternoon, Simon. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Freddie. And yourself?
I'm well, thank you very much. Welcome to Meet Me in the Field.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really feeling quite privileged and honoured to be on your show, if Fantastic. I can call it that.
The show must go on.
Indeed, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming through all the way from Cape Town. I had a lovely lunch. I enjoyed my salad.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Terribly.
Yeah.
Such a nice spot.
Yeah, it is lovely.
Coffee as well. Simon, now I've known you for about 4 years?
On and off for 4 years.
And then suddenly, a while ago, last weekend, 2 weekends ago.
2 weekends ago when we
had
on a retreat,
the privilege of spending a retreat together, and suddenly Simon was a different person. there was a light and a confidence and everything that goes with that, and I thought to myself, I think there's a story.
Yeah.
So you can tell your story if you as much as you want to. So this is
okay.
Meet Me in the Field is a podcast about spiritual journeys. And what I've discovered from you that weekend was that there seems to have been a spiritual awakening, a spiritual awareness that happened. So let's start with your concept of spirituality when you were a child. How did you grow up?
So I grew up with older parents. So my dad was 59 when I was born. He was a civil engineer on the railways, and my mother was 37 when I was born. My dad came from quite a staunch Methodist family in England, but he sort of distanced himself, having come to South Africa. He distanced himself from the family, although his one brother was a Methodist minister. But my mother, interestingly, now her mother left the Anglican Church because she had a stillborn child before my mom was born, and the Anglican Church, because of original sin, which I wasn't aware of until I heard the story, would not bury this stillborn child. So my grandmother on my mom's side left the church, having been a churchgoer, and became agnostic and didn't go to church. So my mom, having been born after the stillborn child, grew up without religion, or actually thinking, well, this religion was something my mother didn't like. But then when my mom went to university, she, of her own volition, decided to get confirmed and baptized in the Anglican Church, in the cathedral in Grahamstown. So, but then of course my mom, being a little bit traditional and being older, when she married my father, because his origins were Methodist, I grew up in the Methodist church. But my mom was much more, I would say, committed to the church than my father was, although he did do a lot of service, being codependent and things like that, which is something that's like a theme in our family, codependency. So as a youngster, I sort of took on this role, but I could never sort of understand why there was this sort of split between a very punitive God that wanted to control and punish us and a more loving God.
Yes.
And so I migrated towards, well, there must be a more loving God, although I sort of also was fearful of, well, getting punished as well, you know. And then to please my parents, I very much, both my brother and I went through the process of becoming confirmed in the Methodist Church. So, and, you know, I think a friend of mine then tried to convert me into the Catholic Church, but that was like just one step too far for me.
Okay.
Because, that is very much more of a power and control situation as I see it. And, you know, I don't want to go into too much detail about, but we know that there's a lot of issues that around Catholicism, and that it is actually almost a separate type of church to, you know, Protestants.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I once had a fight with my mother as a post-teenager.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I feel about you like I feel about God. I don't know whether I should fear you or love you.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see the two merging into an entity. For me, they were two separate things. How can you fear and love the same thing?
Yeah.
That was a kind of conundrum for me in church as well. I found it very difficult to comprehend. So you got confirmed in church, but did religion resonate with you? Was it something that you lived? Was it something that you felt?
Well, I used to pray, but often I would pray when I needed it.
Okay.
So if I was writing an exam, so it was out of fear, you know, Freddie. It was like when I had to fuss bait through something, you know. So at university or, you know, through matric, I would pray before exams or pray around, you know, if there was illness in the family or anything like that. I don't remember ever praying in a more positive way, which was like praying for something or to receive something nice. I don't ever, but it was more out of fear and like, please let me pass this exam, or please let me get an A for this exam, or please don't let this teacher continue to bully me, or this pupil to continue to bully me. I mean, what I enjoyed about church was the songs. I enjoyed singing. It was one and an outlet for me in that way. So when I was at university...
That was at Rhodes. Right?
Yeah, at Rhodes, yeah. So, you know, there's not that much to do when you're at Rhodes. It's quite a small town, and I decided to go exploring different churches.
Okay.
So I went to all churches, including like Seventh-day Adventist. I went to the Reborn type churches. I went to Baptist, which of course I found a little bit too Bible bashing. Presbyterian. So I looked at all the different denominations just out of curiosity.
Okay.
But interestingly, I came back to the Methodist Church because actually Methodism is quite open and liberal in some ways. And, you know, it was also founded in northern England, where there was a huge alcohol abuse issue and addiction issue. So Methodists, strictly speaking, are not supposed to drink. And on my father's side, his aunt, who was a spinster, she was head of the Temperance Society. So that was Aunt Elsie. So she was very revered, and she also was my father's secretary at work. So she was seen to sort of run this office with an iron fist. She was the original Maggie Thatcher.
Iron Lady.
It was sort of like, well, as you said, Freddie, like, and also with my mom, I was thinking I can resonate, like, because my mom did have addiction issues and abuse of alcohol and things, was like, she would be very loving, but at other times she could be very argumentative and very difficult. So it was also this love, like, do I love you? Do I? Yeah. And she was also very controlling, out of fear, I think, for my brother and I, that we would grow up as model citizens, etc. So there was a lot of, because coming from an older, sort of quite Victorian vibe, but, you know, like, you know, you respected women, you respected other people, you respected other races, sort of liberal values as well. But, you know, and that's, my mom passed away 2 months ago. Yeah. And that's what I spoke about at the funeral was, that what I felt she left me, which also helped me through my journey through recovery in addiction, is that even when I was in active addiction, I had my values. I mean, the insanity of it, on my wall in my room, I actually decided one day to post the values just to try and remind myself that even though I was like way off the mark in terms of them, that I needed to try and remind myself of them.
So those were an anchor for you.
Yeah.
You brought up something really interesting for me that I completely forgot as a teenager. I'll never forget. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. But I would pray for something.
Yeah.
And then masturbate.
Okay.
And then felt such extreme guilt because now I've negated the prayer.
Yeah.
I truly believed that act of masturbation was a sin, and now because I've done that, now the prayer won't come true.
Yeah,
What
I mean,
insanity is that?
it is.
And I also remember as a child how I would go to bed and not wanting to pray, but being so afraid that I'll die during the night and not go to heaven because I didn't pray, and then just pray because I don't want to go to hell.
Yeah, I mean, I think fear in my past, and I think if I think of the whole apartheid system, was based around fear. Fear of communism, fear of black people, fear of poverty, fear of everything different to ourselves.
So we're a generation brought up to fear. So no wonder fear was such a huge issue in my life. I actually never thought about that. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So what I hear from you is that, especially in your late teens, early 20s, you were searching.
Yeah, I was definitely
wanted
searching,
a spiritual home. And did you find it at that stage, or did you find it in the arms of
drank
and slechte mans?
Just a little interesting, funny anecdote. Like the guy who became my partner, Maurice, and I ended up baking milk tarts in, can you believe it, electric frying pan. This enclosed electric frying pan in our residence. For the ladies at the Methodist church.
Oh, really?
and they were like amazed that these two male students could be producing
prize-winning South African milk tarts.
That's right. And we then, migrated up because a friend of ours became the warden of our residence. So we then had access to an oven, so we could do it in a more proper way, and we could produce 2 milk tarts.
Double your capacity. The output doubled in one easy step.
But these old ladies were always very amused and impressed by our crustless milk tarts. But in terms of spirituality, it was like I was searching, but I didn't really know what I was searching for, other than that I was looking for, I suppose, answers to the big things, like why are we here? What does this mean? What does it mean?
Word.
You know what I mean? So it's
why do you do that to yourself?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, crazy.
There's a why.
So now I brought it down. In recovery, much more. I mean, I always believed that somehow I connected to a higher being or God or whatever you like to call it. I used to call it God in those days, or the Lord, but because that's what I knew, what I was brought up with. But I was also interested in Buddhism and things like that as well, like, the nurturing of the earth and other human beings. But, God touched me through other human beings. That was how I experienced it in a role, through people being kind to me, through people giving me nice feedback or giving me a gift that was appropriate to me or whatever. That for me was like, well, that's God, working through people. And that somehow, like the spirit of Ubuntu, we all exist because of each other, and therefore there must be some sort of collective consciousness that binds us together. But then I couldn't understand why is there war? Why is there hatred? Why is there discrimination? And particularly because, like, apartheid used the church to justify itself, which was also another thing,
Absolutely.
So, Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion, I suppose.
It sounds like a very brain process, of a cerebral.
Yeah, I mean that's.
cerebral
I think yeah,
spirituality.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean it wasn't a lot of connection, and I didn't, you know, understand really meditation and things like that at that point. So it was very like a transactional prayer, almost.
Yeah.
Like
I do if you do,
do
type of thing. And
yeah.
if
And
you, then
please,
I will. That
and
type
please do this, and please keep me safe. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't, you know, it wasn't an open dialogue, which is what it's more like for me today, and more of an intuitive feeling process as well of trying to feel what my higher power is wanting for me, rather than trying to think what my higher power is wanting for me. Yeah.
So, am I correct if I say what I'm hearing is that the why fell away? or the why has moved from capitals to small caps.
Capitals, yeah, I think so, yeah. And it's more about, well, what does it mean for me, and what does it mean for my connection to other people, and what does it mean for my recovery and for keeping me safe in situations where I'm having difficulty, and also the feeling of peace, because of suffering from depression and things like that. The feeling of peace that I get now, that I know that I'm never alone, that I can always reach out to a higher power, and you know that higher power will work. I trust that higher power. So a lot of it is now, you know, trusting that things will work out, and being able to let go and not control things, because you know I used to be very, very controlling.
I'm raising my hand. I'm waving. You know, me too.
And I would be, you know, hugely attached to outcomes. You know, very what is the outcome of things going to be?
And being unhappy if you don't get your outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, also tied in with that, the fear of, if I don't get my outcome, well, then the world's, you know, I have no anchor in the world, you know.
Yeah.
And now I kind of trust that, but, you know, it's a fine balance, but, because, I mean, I know I've got to take action to do things. Like I'm not going to be able to build my business unless I do something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to force that to the extent of like setting huge goals for myself.
Or becoming the next obsession.
Or becoming another obsession. Yeah. So
that's always a difficult one for me as well. Is how do I stay committed to what I think is important to me without it becoming an obsession, without taking my life out of balance.
Yeah.
That kind of very fine balance between taking all the action and turning the end result over type of thing. So, what is high power? Do you know what high power is today?
I think for me, higher power is within myself, like trying to connect, because I know, particularly in active addiction and before active addiction, I was very, as you said, very, very cerebral. I was very locked into my head and my thoughts, and trying to think myself into or out of situations, and trying to almost overcomplicate the idea of what a higher power is. And so for me, within myself, it's about connecting my gut, my heart, and my head, and trying to get them into alignment in some way, so that I can feel myself into what is best for me, and feel myself into connecting with other people, so that I'm no longer like in active addiction, because I'm a sex and love addict. I would like be obsessed with my the desire for a younger male, for instance, and then I would do everything to try and control getting that younger male, but not thinking that actually that person is an independent person that has their own needs and their own things. So a lot of it is now also boundaries, understanding where my boundaries And it's strange to bring boundaries into spirituality, but I think it is, because it's about where my boundaries end and another person's begin, and understanding that they're an independent individual. And yes, I can experience God through them if there's some sort of connection.
Yeah.
But equally, it should be coming from them as well. So also thinking about sort of the law of attraction, if I'm not too into this whole secret thing, but, thinking about, well, the energy you put out is what you also draw in.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that when I was in active addiction, I was attracting very toxic individuals who I thought I was helping, and that I was, but I wasn't. It was actually a very toxic.
So the motive was kind of
so the motive, yeah. So that's the other thing, is like asking myself, what is my motivation in the situation, and is it a pure motive, or is it trying to control an outcome, or trying to get something because I want it, or I'm addicted to it. So trying to really calm myself down and calm my head down. So I do try and do, 5-minute guided meditations. I find them easier because I do have a very ADD busy mind.
Double hands up from my side.
So I don't try and set myself up to sit for half an hour at this stage, but I'm trying to build it up, from 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Do you use an app for that? Or
I just tend to Google 5-minute meditations, and then use that. But I've been looking at apps. There have been some suggested to me.
Have you met Insight Timer yet?
No, I should have a look at that.
That Insight Timer, again, sponsorship please. I'm selling you again. It's a free app actually, so I'm not really selling them.
Yeah.
A sponsee introduced me to Insight Timer, and it has truly changed my life. And I don't know how it's different from other apps, but I just resonate with it, and I've given it to many people, and everybody comes back and said they love it, they use it.
Yeah.
So I'll show you after this what it looks like, and it's just download it. The nice thing is there you can go and, you remember at the retreat the guy was talking about meditation as being seen as insight, getting insight. So I think that's where the word, because I couldn't understand why is this thing called Insight Timer. So you time the time that you allocate to the insight that you're going to have. So you can go and select 0 to 5 minutes, and then select topics in there. Or you, like me being OCD, I go from top to bottom. That's how it's supposed to work. You don't scramble things up, and I love it. I really, really do. So, what I like what you said. You spoke about the energy that you put out and the energy you attract, and that is the difference that I saw from you now. Is the energy that surrounds you is so different, and I can feel an attraction energy where previously the energy was don't get too close. Very, very strange. And it was really we spoke during lunch about flipping the coin. It was really as if you just flipped that coin and said, this doesn't work, I'm going to do it this way.
I think, because I came into recovery 4 years ago, and then I was sort of in and out. So I was still at a level of denial and I always thought that I could do it differently. Do
because you're unique and different.
And special. So
of course, how could I forget to say that?
So, but I've realized now that it was all a journey, and I learned things, and my active addiction was never the same once I'd been in recovery, because I always was aware, more aware of what I was doing, and I did try and change things, but I also then cross addicted to other things in that time as well. As happens, these things pop up out of the sand. So this time around, what changed for me, Freddie, I think, was that I realized that I needed to do this for myself. And also my brother was quite hard on me, and that he said, this is like the last time that he was going to help me.
Okay.
And so I think that also helped me, because us addicts need tough love I certainly needed it to wake up a little bit. And that's what changed. And I remember leaving primary treatment, like giving a little speech saying, everyone in the room needs to learn to love themselves and to take care of themselves, and that this recovery journey is about themselves and their own well-being, and it's about my well-being in the world. Because if I'm not well in the world, then I'm not going to be able to work well. I'm not going to be able to be a good family member. I'm not going to be able to have healthy relationships.
A good contributing member to society.
Yeah.
And especially you being in the helping field as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So, it's not surprising my coaching business wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in the right space, And thank heavens I wasn't coaching people, because probably I would not have been giving a very good aura.
I hear you. Well, this is all we've got time for today, because I know you need to run.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed this quite short and intense chat.
Thanks, Freddie. I appreciate it.
What I'm getting out of your chat, and what I'm getting out of you since that retreat, is that we can change.
Yeah.
What we need to do, we need to basically take the situation by the balls, own our responsibility in it, and do what needs to be done. And that's what I'm getting from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is really, really excellent.
And as much as I'm a codependent, I've realized that I need to be selfish in my recovery.
Yes.
In that my recovery, I have to set boundaries around it and not allow other people to affect it, which is what I allowed, in active addiction in a big way. Yeah.
My favorite saying at the moment is own oxygen mask first.
Yes,
we need to make sure that we're okay before anybody else around us can, before we can even try to make sure that anybody else around us.
Absolutely. And especially in the helping field, because we can't help others if we're not in a healthy space ourselves.
Very true. Awesome. Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks, Freddie.
In short, it sounds as if Simon found recovery from addiction, and that is what changed him. He actually celebrated 1 year clean and sober the week before this recording. It is truly remarkable to see what difference this year has made in Simon's life. Behind the recovery story, I hear another story, and that is one of self-love. Simon has come to realize that he is a worthwhile being, and he deserves to take part in what life has to offer. I just love stories like these. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to connect with me on my website, which is www.freddy.org.za, or find me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/freddy.org.za, or on Twitter at @RensburgFreddy. Remember that Freddy is always spelled with an IE at the end. I want to thank Simon for his time and for sharing his views with Meet Me in the Field. Thank you for listening too. Be safe. Bye.